Friedrich Hayek was one of the most important and influential economic and political theorists of the 20th century. In economics, two of Hayek's most important ideas were to explain how a market system is able to coordinate economic activity more effectively than central planning by governments, and to explain how competition within a market system should be understood as a process of trial and error learning or discovery. Let's take economic coordination first. The economic problem that faces any society is to respond to the changing scarcity of goods and services. The problem, however, is precisely that no single person or group is smart enough to comprehend the scarcity of different goods on a society-wide basis. Even the most intelligent people are comparatively ignorant when it comes to addressing questions on this scale. So what are we to do? Hayek argued that the great advantage of a predominantly market-based economy, as opposed to a centrally planned or government-directed economy, is that it addresses the issue of resource scarcity without any single group having to access all of the necessary information. A market economy draws on a division of knowledge, which enables each of us as individual consumers and producers to adapt our behaviour on the basis of information that only we have access to. Consumers, for example, are much more likely to know their own preferences for particular goods than any central agency. And producers who spend their entire lives working in a particular business or line of trade are much more likely to be aware of the scarcity of the inputs for their particular business than distant bureaucrats. Every time we make a decision to buy or sell in a market at a particular price, we communicate a small piece of information to those with whom we trade. This information then acts as a basis for their dealings with subsequent actors. So, for example, if a weather event in Colombia results in a poor coffee crop, this information gradually feeds through into the price system as first farmers, then distributors, then retailers, and then finally consumers are faced with a higher price for coffee. In response to the higher price, some consumers may switch away to cheaper brands, perhaps sourced from other locations in the world. Other consumers may switch to different beverages, such as tea. Adjustments of this nature take place in hundreds of thousands of different markets for goods and services on a daily basis. Adjustments which will be far too complex to be organised by a committee of politicians or bureaucrats. It is not only in communicating knowledge about changing resource scarcities that markets perform a better job than central planning. According to Hayek, competitive markets also act as a process of trial and error learning or discovery. Consumers in markets don't necessarily know which goods they want to buy. Producers, meanwhile, don't necessarily know which goods to produce or which production methods to use. Answers to these questions are precisely what needs to be discovered. According to Hayek, a competitive market system performs this process of discovery far more effectively than if production decisions are made by the state. Which blends of coffee do consumers prefer to drink? What's the most efficient way of transporting coffee from the producer to the consumer? And what kind of ambience and customer service experience do consumers want when they buy a cup? In a market system, a variety of dispersed entrepreneurs and businesses with different ideas about how to serve the consumer compete to see which of those ideas works best. In a centrally planned or state-driven system, by contrast, Only one set of ideas can be tried out at any particular point in time. As a consequence, the scope for learning about the merits of alternatives is necessarily reduced. If we take seriously the idea of competition as a discovery procedure, then we have to reject the models of so-called perfect competition often found in economics textbooks. These models suggest that markets only perform well when there are a large number of firms, each with access to the same information, such that none can exercise any impact on prices. Departures from these conditions in the textbooks are described as market failures. On Hayek's view, however, these are not failures at all, but represent the very essence of economic life. Firms never have access to the same ideas and information. Some firms do a better job of spotting what the consumers want and of how to organize the relevant business. It is these firms that make profits, while other, less successful businesses make smaller profits or losses. It is precisely these inequalities in market power between different firms that facilitates a learning process over time, as other businesses learn to copy the most successful business models and to avoid the loss makers. So long as governments avoid erecting barriers which prevent potential competitors from challenging established firms, and they often do erect such barriers by making it more expensive for new businesses to get started, then profits should not be seen as evidence of market failure, but as evidence of entrepreneurial success in discovering what the market wants and how best to serve it.
If you'd like to find out more, you can download this book for free at iea.org.uk.